Well, hello everybody, welcome back to Cooking 101 You Too Can Cook. Chef Don here, and I had somebody ask me to make banana bread, so that's what we're going to do today. And you know, as always, like and subscribe, but also you can list down below something that you would like me to cook or bake for you. Alright, so I love cookbooks. This is from my Black Buggy cookbook, one of my favorite ones. You can see I've made this a few times. I'm going to make banana bread. We're going to make banana nut bread actually. And I have all my ingredients here. It's good to have all your measuring cups, all your ingredients so you can be ready to go. We're going to start out with, says a half cup of vegetable oil, okay? So, got this on hand here. I don't think it really matters what brand you use. I usually just get the generic because it's cheaper. Alright, right at the half mark there. Pour that in there. Now, since I have all my ingredients out, I like to set them aside once I finish with them, just so they're not taking up space. Alright, then we're going to do 1 cup of sugar. Now, I like to use a half cup of regular sugar and a half cup of brown sugar. The reason for that is the brown sugar has a very rich flavor to it. Brown sugar is just sugar that has molasses in it. Okay, and so depending on how much molasses you have in there, that depends on whether it's light brown sugar or dark brown sugar. Okay, so we're going to even that right off there at the top. And what it tells us to do is to cream the oil and the sugar together. I've got my brown sugar in here. I believe I've got enough in here for a half a cup. Now, with brown sugar, just because it's a little more dense, I want you to kind of pack that in and make sure that you're going to get a full cup. Now, I don't have quite a full cup there. Let's see if I can get an extra spoon here. Because this is definitely one of those ingredients that you have to have just the right amount. Look at that, we're going to have just the right amount. Okay. Alright, now creaming the sugar and the oil together is very easy. Okay, all they're wanting you to do is just mix it together like this, and you see how that oil starts to dissolve the sugar.
I know that's not what I think it is. Oil is oil.
It's oil. It's oil. Hey.
Okay. And then you'll just have kind of like a little paste like that. The more you stir it, a little bit more liquidy it becomes. Sometimes I'll smash it down with my spatula there. Alright, that's good enough. See? All nice and mixed together. Okay, now it's going to have me add the bananas and the eggs. Alright, so this banana bread takes 3 bananas. I'm telling you what, I had to guard these 3 bananas with my life. Because my grandkids eat them like crazy because I think that they are part monkey. I always laugh if I ask them if they're a monkey, but they love bananas. Now I took that extra string off there because we don't really want that in there. All right. Now these are not quite as ripe as I normally like them to be, but I wanted to go ahead and get this one done so I could show everybody how to do it. So we'll just have to mash a little bit more, okay? All right. Now, what you're going to want to do too is take that little black part off there. That's just kind of hooked to the stem and it comes right off. All right, just throw those bananas in there. Get rid of your peels. All right, now I have a potato masher. Remember, you may have remembered that from another video when we did utensils. And I'm just gonna come in here with that. I'm gonna mash up those bananas. Okay, so that's still kind of lumpy, you can see in there. So I'm just gonna take the back of the spoon and just work this against the bowl. If you are just really intent on having a very smooth banana bread, you can run this through a food processor. Or when you're all said and done, you can take a mixer to it, I suppose. All right, now, I'm gonna call for 2 eggs. Oh, I forgot to get my eggs out of the refrigerator. What was I thinking? If you want your house to smell good, then this is definitely a way to do that, because once this banana bread starts to cook, it smells amazing. Okay, remember we talked about eggs, right there in the middle, 2 thumbs. Crack it right there in the bowl. Make sure you don't get any shell in there. There we go. Okay, stack them together. Didn't get any on the pinky. Throw those shells away. Come on over here, and someone stole my soap. Wash your hands real quick. Because if we don't, and we touch other things, then we can get cross-contamination, and that can make people sick. You definitely don't want to do that. So we're just gonna wash your hands. Got a towel handy right here. Let's go ahead and slide these back in the fridge. While I'm doing that, I'll just go ahead and grab the milk out. We'll be back here in just a minute. All right, now, it says that we need to beat these eggs. And the reason they want you to do that before you put it in the batter is that way they're all incorporated a little bit easier. So remember, you're just gonna pierce the yolk and take that fork, just mix the yolk and the egg whites together. So you'll get a nice golden yellow mixture here. Those are nice and beaten. Okay, so just go on ahead and pour those in there. You can take your spatula there and get out all the rest of the good stuff. Okay, now it says to beat that well. You can come in there, and if you still have a few pieces of bigger banana, you can smash that up against the wall of the bowl there. But yeah, we're just gonna mix all that together. Then we're gonna come in with our dry ingredients, okay? Now it says to sift our dry ingredients, all right? You don't always have to do this, but when you're making what we're making tonight is called a quick bread, and it's just better if you do, because when you do that, it helps the dry ingredients all mix in there much easier, all right? And I forgot about that, or I would have had this out. Okay, so this is a sifter, okay? We can put all of our dry ingredients in there, and then we'll do that. It'll look like it's snowing, and it'll mix all those dry ingredients together really well. Now, I'm gonna put a plate underneath it though, because some of it may come out a little bit, all right? So, it asks for 2 cups of flour. That was our oven saying it was ready. Okay, so this is a new bag of flour, so the flour is right there up at the top. Keep your measuring cup right there in the thing and just level it off. Okay, that's what this is actually even called, a leveler. Okay, so then we're going to put that right in here. Okay, that's empty. So we're going to come back in here and get one more. again, just kind of tap it, make it even out there. Take your leveler, level it off. Okay, there we go. So that's 2 cups of flour. All right, now these are the leavening agents that we're getting ready to put in there. That's what they're called. And it just helps the bread to rise. All right, so it asks for a tablespoon of baking soda. That's what this is. A lot of people clean with baking soda. You can put it in your refrigerator and it helps to absorb odors. But here, we're gonna use it to make a wonderful bread. Now, the box comes with this lid, and when you bend that back, that can be your leveler, okay? And that way it all just goes back in the box. Here, I'll show you one more time. So just get on there and then scrape it like there, oh, right in there, okay? Okay, and then it asks for a ½ teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, so this is baking powder. It always comes in these canisters with a lid because baking powder can lose its effectiveness after a while. So this helps it stay a little fresher. And you gotta make sure that when you're looking at your recipes that you make sure that it says baking powder or baking soda, because some things don't take both, but this one does. Okay? All right, and so that calls for ½ tablespoon of baking powder. Okay, once again, it's got a little lip right there. You can even it right off with that. And I realized after I got that actually it had asked for a teaspoon of soda and I had used a ½ teaspoon. But no worries, we'll just come back over here, grab the baking soda and add that other ½ teaspoon in there. I almost put it right in the batter. All right, now, next thing it calls for is a ½ teaspoon of salt. Now, if I have this on hand, this is the way I like to do it, just because if you try to get it out of your salt shaker, it's just gonna make a mess. So, it comes right out a little bit easier than some of the other items, but you still wanna make sure that you have just a ½ teaspoon, so you can even use your finger as long as your finger's clean. Put that in there. All right, we're almost done here. Then it calls for 3 tablespoons of milk.
He needs some
All right,
milk.
so here's our milk right here. So the reason this is called quick bread is because it's much quicker than using yeast when we're making wheat bread or white bread, because you have to let the yeast activate and you have to let the bread rise and then beat it back down and let it rise again. That's quite a process. And with this one, everything's all incorporated into one batter, so it bakes much more quickly, which gives it its name, quick bread.
What?
It's oh so yummy. Okay, now we talked about the dry ingredients going in, and here we go. Now, so you can see a little bit came out on the bottom. Okay, that's not a problem. I'll just shake it back there in the top. I just didn't want it to get on the counter. And this is the fun part. So here's our handle. And we'll just make it smell. Okay. Now the faster you go with the handle, the quicker it'll sift everything through. But all those ingredients are going to get sifted together. It's going to make a much more even bake. Okay, now you get down towards the bottom and you notice it's all around the outside edge. And then just tap your sifter with the ingredients there in the middle. And you want to get it all. See how much more came out there just by tapping it? All right. Now see how nice and billowy that is? Okay. And we're just going to mix all of that together. Now, it also calls for a ½ teaspoon of vanilla, but I like to get all this mixed into there together before I put in the vanilla. Okay, we're just going to use our spatula here. We're just going to mix all this together. Look, it's making what's called a wet batter. Okay, even though you have all of that dry ingredients going in, the batter's still wet because you have the eggs, the milk, the oil, all of those things that are wet. But it's the dry ingredients that cause it to turn into a bread and to bake. A yummy loaf. Okay, now there we go. Now see, it's all pretty well incorporated. So we're going to take our vanilla, we're going to add some of it. It calls for a half teaspoon of that. Just pour that into your half a teaspoon thingy here. Dump that right in there. And I actually like to put just a little bit of cinnamon in mine. I think it adds a nice flavor to it. I'll come in here. This is a Ceylon cinnamon powder. I'm not going to put a whole teaspoon in there. I'm just using this one because it's the one I had. And my half teaspoon is messy. So that's about a half teaspoon that we're putting in there. Okay. Go on and close this back up because if that bag falls over, you don't want all that good cinnamon to fall out. All right, so we have a couple more ingredients that we're just going to mix in there. And the reason I wait is because I think it mixes through the batter a little bit better once you've created the batter. So that's what we're doing there. Okay, now we can stop here, okay? A lot of people just like banana bread, but I'm actually making this loaf for my daughter-in-law because she had a birthday. And so I'm going to put some nuts in there because that's the way she likes it. I've got some pecans. You can use walnuts. You can use whatever nut you want to. But I'm going to put some chopped pecans in there. You can put as many as you like. It calls for about a half a cup. And I say that's about a half a cup right there. They're already chopped up, which is nice. Now if you want them chopped up smaller, you can put them in a food processor, or you can use your food chopper. I'm just going to incorporate that really well there. Okay, and guess what? That is ready to go into a pan and into the oven. All right, so let me get my spray here. One of my loaf pans. This is a wonderful, heavy-duty, non-stick loaf pan, but I still go ahead and spray it just to be on the safe side. I want it to come out. But I don't spray a whole bunch in there, just a little bit. All right, now we got it on the sides and on the bottom. Now I'm gonna take all of this, I'm gonna drop it down into this loaf pan. Now this makes a really dense bread, and it's kind of tall, and it'll fill a lot of this loaf pan up. We're just gonna put it all in there. And it'll just go ahead and kind of fill the loaf pan by itself. Now, you want to take your spatula, you want to get all that good stuff off the edge. You don't want to leave any of that good stuff in there. Look how much more we just scraped off the edge there. Okay. All right. I've got some kind of sticking to the spatula here. Get that out of there. As I said, we don't want to leave any of this goodness behind. Now, many of us, as we grew up, our moms or grandmas or grandpas, whoever baked, let us lick the spatulas or the beaters or whatever have you. But you have to be careful because it has raw egg in it, okay? And that can make you sick, so just be careful. All right, now, I usually go ahead and hang it on the counter a couple times, and what that does is it helps the air bubbles come to the top. That way it won't be in your bread. All right? Okay, it looks good, it looks ready to go in. Look at that. That's gonna be fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna come over to our oven. Preheated the oven to 350 degrees, okay? But we started out with upper oven, bake, it pops on to 350. That's what I want. So then I hit start and it preheats for me, okay? Now, I'm gonna come right in here. I'm gonna put it on this middle shelf here. Be careful, everything in here is very hot. Just push that in right to the middle. That's gonna get a nice even bake, okay? Close it up. And this banana bread takes 1 hour. So we're gonna set our timer. I know that looks like 1 minute, but I promise it's 1 hour. I'm gonna hit start, and we're gonna let that oven do its job. Okay, so while that's baking, we're gonna go ahead and take a break. We're gonna clean up, and then when we come back, we will have an awesome loaf of banana bread. Now, we're gonna pull this bread out of here, and we're gonna see what it looks like. Okay, it's looking good. It's getting a little bit brown there on the top. Alright, we're gonna bring that over here. We're gonna put it down on here. And we're gonna test it. This is a cake tester, actually. It belongs to my wife, but she won't mind if I use it. You're gonna just stick that right down in the center of the loaf and pull that back up. If it comes out clean, then it's done. Okay. Now, you can check over here on this side too, just to be on the safe side. It's not gonna really do anything to it. Came out nice and clean. One more check over here. There we go, good deal. Okay, also wanted to say, you know, we talked about the baking powder, how it has a lid to help keep it fresh. This is what I do with my baking soda to help it stay fresh as well. I go ahead and I put it in a baggie. All right, now, one thing that I like to do with my breads is I like to baste the top with a mixture of butter and honey. Just all over the top of it like that. Okay, it's about half a tablespoon of butter, half a tablespoon of honey, and I did put a splash of vanilla in there. And you'll see how it makes it glossy on the top. Okay, that we're going to put it back in there just for a few minutes, and that will caramelize on the top of the bread and it'll make it wonderful. Now you can see that this is getting kind of dark up here on the top. Okay, if you don't want it to brown anymore on the top, especially since my heating element is on the top, then you'll tint some aluminum foil over it. Now the reason we're going to tint it though is because we want the moisture to rise out of the bread and not get stuck in there because it'll make it soggy. Okay, now you have to be careful because the pan is really hot, but you're just going to quickly crimp down the edges, and you can usually do that without burning your fingers. But if you want to use your hot pad, you may do that. And see, we literally created a tint. Okay, that's going to protect the top of the bread, but still allow that sauce I put on there to caramelize. All right, we're going to give this about 5 more minutes on the timer. And that'll just let it finish up and make that nice glaze on the top. All right, well, welcome back. Okay, so you can hear that dinging. The thing about it is sometimes when I'm in the living room, I can't hear that dinging, and people say, hey, you hear that? Well, that's my timer. Okay, so we're going to turn that off. We're going to pull the bread out and check it out here. Now you can use your handy dandy puller outer if you want to do that. Okay. Now we put that tin on there to keep the top from getting any darker, but allowing that air to circulate. Plus we wanted that glaze that I put on there to get all caramelized. Let's take a gander. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That is just the way we want it, right there. So this is banana nut bread. I have met one of the other requests to make that. And as I said, like, subscribe, and tell me what you would like me to make. All right. I wish you success in your kitchen, whether you're using the stove or the oven, whatever you're doing to create culinary art. All right. Take care, and we'll see you again.